when we meet here in Torrey 223 on Saturday, we will be in the GIS lab. You can use the GIS computers if you don't have one, but we will be installing the software like we did in Orono last week. And it'll be, and there's Grace, who's sitting right here. She doesn't have a camera. Anyway, okay, here we go. Sent mail and live class. I'm going to mute that machine so that it doesn't give us trouble. All right, so what we're going to do today to start out is to begin thinking about how we're gonna create our first map for our first problem set. And I know we went over with a group in Orono last week, map types, and we made some basic maps. We'll do that again this week. So there might be some terms I'll use that we haven't gone over yet, Grace, because you haven't had your Saturday session yet, but you will. And so what I want to do now is to get you guys started actually making a map. And we're going to talk about what GIS is and how GIS data works, and use that to get started with your first sort of little project. So to get started, you're going to need some data, and to get your data, you're going to need to download it. Some of you, if you had your own computer, or if you whatever you're using out there in the world, if you have what you downloaded at the Saturday session last week, you have what you need. But to get there, you'll need to go to the course website, and you will need to go to, that's not the right course website. Jeez. Let's see, sorry. I know what to do. I guess I have to change the link, which I shall, but I'm not going to do it on your time. Nope. GIS 230, there we go, 2018. I knew it was in there somewhere. Okay. So if you go to the course website and then scroll down and click the week 2 link, and are you able to get there? Oh, is it slow getting opening?
It's been, it like just kicked me out of the, oh, okay, just popped up.
Okay. Yeah, they're slow to get started, these things. And I can, here, let me send you, I'll send a link on the chat too, so you'll have it. So here's a link. And once you get it, make sure you bookmark it so that you have it forever and ever. So there it is in the chat, so you can click on it and open it. So what you're looking for is, right now it's at the bottom. I'll be adding this video and a couple of other links, the attendance link and so forth. But what you need is in this practice data folder. So you'll click that and it'll take you to the practice data folder. And for the exercise that we're going to do today, you only need one of these, and that's census. Oh, am I sharing my screen? Oh, I'm not. So I'm going to share that. So if you go to this link that I just sent, scroll down, week 2, and the bottom right here, it's practice data. And that opens this practice data folder, and there's a bunch of different things in there that we're going to use over the course of the semester. And what you're after is the census.zip. So we'll download that. I'll right-click on it and choose download. And when I download it, it's going to want me to put it somewhere. If it automatically downloads to the downloads folder, you can get it there. But I'll show you in a sec. If it asks you where to put it, here's where I want you to put it. You're going to click over here, OSC. Are you with me or?
Yeah.
Okay, good. OSC, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down. And in my C drive, I've got this workspace folder. If you double click that, mine has a bunch of stuff in it, but you may not have quite so many things. And I'm going to click new folder and make a little new folder. And you guys who are following along, if you're following me and I lose you, let me know in the chat. And I'm going to make a GIS 230 S18 folder. Notice that I don't use any spaces, letters, numbers, and underscores. Never under any circumstances on pain of death use a point, a dot, in a file name or a folder name.
How do you add a new file?
A new folder? This button right here.
Okay.
Yep. You can also right-click in the blank space over here and choose new. Another way. And then once you have the new folder, you open it. And then you can save your census layer. And while we're doing that, I need to give you guys an attendance code, lest I forget. So the attendance code today is 3502. 3502 is the attendance code. 3502. And I will post an attendance thing for you to enter that. So go ahead and download that baby, get that going. And what's today? The 2nd, right? I mean, for the 1st. Yeah, and we're intro to. All right. Okay. So once you have that downloaded, you may need to go find it. You can click the little show in folder button or right click. It opens the same thing really in any browser. And you can either double click it and use the onboard, the existing what do you call it? Decompression utility, or right click on it. My computer has 7-zip. I think it's pzip in the lab in Nutting Hall. And I'm just going to extract here. Now this is my GIS 230 folder. I probably want to put this stuff in a project folder where I can use it. Well, I think we'll just leave it like it is now, and we'll make a project folder for what we're going to do, as I'll show you in a sec. And I know most of you who are online there have already done this with me on Saturday. So bear with us as we redo this just briefly. You got it? Okay, good. Well, we'll see. And so now we also need to open ArcMap. And to open ArcMap, so on my desktop, I have this little link right here at the bottom. And but I can click Start, and I can search. I can type ArcMap, and that will come up. And that will work on any system, any Windows system. I'll click that and it'll come right up. All right, I'm going to make sure my screen share is working. And it will take a couple minutes. So while this is loading, and it really does take some time, I want to, let me see if I can Google up an example of what's known as a choropleth map. Anybody remember what a choropleth map is? You can type into the chat here. And if you don't have the chat, you can click on the message I just sent, or you can wave your pointer over the screen, and on the left-hand side of the screen, a little blue button will come up, a stack of buttons, and it's the top button. Yeah, color. So choro means color, and pleth means gradient. So color gradient map. So these are all, this is very pretty, isn't it? These are all choropleth maps. Some are better than others. This one is particularly bad. That has no projection. It's just straight up bad. Anyway, so these are all different types of choropleth maps. So that's what we're going to make. This is not a choropleth map. That is not a color gradient map, but somebody thought it was, so they put it up there. This is, though. So that's what we're gonna make right now. So first of all, if we go to ArcMap right here, you'll get this initial window. You can just dismiss it, just put it away. I'm gonna maximize my screen here. And your screen might look like this. What you're looking for, what you need is the catalog. So if you look over on the side, so Grace, you're in one of these computers that doesn't freeze, so it stays the way the last person used it is. And so you're looking for the catalog, and the catalog might be in a tab along the side. If it is, you can make it come up. And I'm having all kinds of fun things with computers today. You can come up and you can hit the little pin so it will stick there. So we'll need the catalog eventually. We also, yeah, let's actually just stick with the catalog. Let's see. Yep, you're in the catalog.
Okay.
This is the catalog. Yep.
Oh, yeah, never mind. There it is.
Yep, it says catalog right on the top. And you probably have, did you expand a bunch of things like this? Is that what I was?
I haven't touched it yet.
Oh, okay. So, so there's this catalog, and we can do lots of fun things with it. Really, we can totally do great things. There we go. So we need to find the data that you just saved. Okay, and so wherever you put that data, you're going to need to go find it. It has to be unzipped. So if you haven't unzipped it yet, you won't be able to see it. But if you unzipped it, you'll need to to go get it. So we're going to look for folder connections. I'm going to click this expandy button, and I have a lot of folder connections here, actually. So I've got CI, GIS data, blah, 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 right? One of them is my workspace, and that's where I've got all that information. If you guys who are watching have saved your data someplace and it's not, a path to it isn't showing up here, you can connect to it. So for instance, I can connect to any folder on my computer so I have a convenient way of finding it. So why don't I create a new GIS 230 Spring 18 folder? So I'm going to hit that right there, connect to folder. And I'm going to go to my computer and expand it, OS-C and expand it, and it's in that workspace. I know that. There it is, GIS 230 S18. That's my folder that I want to connect to. Do you find yours?
So.
And so just click on the folder. You don't need to go any deeper than that, just on the folder and click OK. And now I'm pointing to the screen as though you can see it. Now you'll have a connection to the folder that you're working with.
Yeah, I think it is.
Is it the right name that you gave it?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to expand that folder by clicking the plus sign. And now I can see I have cities, counties, and states. Do you guys have cities, counties, and states? All right, so let's see. Yep. Here, let's see. Don't think that you extracted it. Yeah, so you did download it?
I think so.
All right. Yep, that's in there, but you didn't extract it. Okay, so all right. So if you haven't extracted it, if it downloaded and you thought you put it somewhere and you haven't extracted it, let's go back to the extraction. You'll want to use Windows Explorer or File Explorer, depending on the version of Windows you're using. And that's this button. You might not be able to see it on the screen there. Let me make this smaller so it's visible. There we go. So, no, it's still not. Anyway, it's the folder button. You can see it at least, Grace. And so I click the little folder button and I navigate to my folder. So workspace, and there's my folder, and there's my census file. Do you find it?
Are we supposed to be in the OS?
Yeah, OSC, workspace.
GIS data.
Workspace. Double click. And yep. Double click. And right click. Okay. So right click and then choose 7-zip. Extract here. I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it. And you should have these now. They pop up?
Yes.
Great. And so now you can go back to ArcGIS and you can refresh the folder. And there's always this little gap. So when we have 2 Saturday sessions, sections of the Saturday sessions, there's the group that's already done it and the group that hasn't yet. So you guys get to switch later in the semester. So once you have those 3 cities, counties, and states, what I want you to add to the map is, let's add states to begin with. So I'll bring that in. And to add the states, you click on the word states and then hold your button down and drag and just drop it into the blank spot. And it should look like that.
ArcGIS is coming back up again. I don't know if it closed down or something, but it's reloading. Technology is not my favorite thing. Let's see.
We
It
should
just-
have you,
It's just like up again.
did you close it before?
I think so. It's something else.
Okay. Weird. Okay, that's not GIS data. Workspace. That is strange. And what we may want to do is, if you're going to be the only one, if you sit here next time, I'll be able to see.
Okay. And you want to just do
States. Yep.
First?
Yep. And so what you do is you click the word states,
Mhm.
just click and hold and drag and drop. And that's it. And so once you're here, a couple things to note. You've got Zoomy tools somewhere. So zoom in and zoom out tools, hand tool. So you can click that Zoomy tool and draw a box. You can use your mouse roller. If your mouse has a roller, you can zoom back to full extent. I call this the pan tool is the scoochy tool, so you can pick up and scooch around. And we do want to give our map a projection. We'll talk about what a projection is later. I'm not going to get into that now. But to do that, we're going to come over here to the table of contents, and right here where it says layers, we'll right click on that and then choose properties. And for now, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I'll tell you what to do, and later I'll tell you why. I'm going to scroll all the way to the top. I'm going to collapse geographic. I'm going to expand projected, and I will expand continental. And obviously I want North America. And what I'm after here is USA contiguous Albers equal area conic. And while I'm going through that, so just to repeat, it's going to be projected, continental, North America, and then USA contiguous Albers equal area conic. It's near the bottom of the list. So while you're doing that, incidentally, if you're watching this as a recording, so I'm going to click OK and yes. If you're watching this as a recording, it's okay if things are dragging on to move the slider forward, or if it's going too slow, you can move it. Going too fast, you can move it back. You can also change the speed of the YouTube videos, so that's an option as well. Okay, so we've got this map now, and we have obviously all of the US states. And do you know what all the states are? See if you can play a little game with yourself and use this tool. It's the identify tool with the blue ball with the white eye on it, and pick a state and say, okay, I think that's, let's see, I think that's Colorado, and I'm going to click there and see if it's Colorado. That's Colorado. I think that's Wisconsin. Minnesota. Oh, I got them switched. There's Wisconsin. There's Minnesota. Play a little game with yourself. And notice that there's all kinds of information about these states that pops up whenever you click on one with that identify tool. That's pretty cool. So there's all this additional information that just pops up in this identify box. And it seems to be connected to the information in my map. And so that reveals one of the really special things about ArcGIS, or about GIS in general, is that it has this ability to connect the information about where stuff is with other information about those geographic features. Okay, so let's close the identify box. I'm going to just click the little X and close that out. And we're going to actually access all that data. We can even click the little auto hide pin on the catalog and make the catalog go away if you feel like it. And so now we're going to explore the information a little more fully. And to do that, we need something called the attribute table. And that is, we're going to go over to our table of contents. And I'm going to right click on the word states. And I'm going to choose Open Attribute Table. The table pops up, and if you're using ArcGIS for the first time, which some of you may be who are watching right now, the table might be floating around and sort of covering up your map. It's total pain in the butt. You can dock any of these windows by clicking the blue bar at the top, and notice when I've got that clicked, those little blue arrows show up, and it shows me where I can put these things. So I'm going to put this down here on this arrow, put my pointer right on that arrow and let go, and it docks my table, which is pretty handy. I can zoom around. I'm going to zoom just to the lower 48 for now. And look at this amazing amount of stuff I have. I need to get rid of a toolbar here. I have this amazing amount of stuff that I can know about each and every state. It's census data. If I click, here's Maine, right? And there's all this information about Maine. If I wanted to know where Maine is on the map, hopefully you guys already know. But I can click the little gray box all the way over to the left. So this little gray box right there, I can click that and it will highlight that row. And look what happens in the map. It's connected. So there's Wyoming. It's connected. Wisconsin, which I mixed up with Michigan. No, not Michigan, Minnesota. So there's this connection between what's on the map and what's on the and what there is to know about that stuff. And those are two different kinds of data: spatial data and attribute data. And this does not need to be nearly this large. Here, that's more reasonable. So spatial data and attribute data. Spatial data is the geographic feature, and it's, you know, where it is. And the attribute data is info about the geographic feature, and that's what is it? What it is, I should have said. What it is, right? So the map part is showing me this spatial data, and the table part is showing me the attribute data, and they are connected, right? We'll talk soon about how they're connected, but for right now, suffice it to say that they are connected. And so this, one of the main superpowers of GIS, I think I asked the class this the other day. I said, okay, if I asked you to make a choropleth map, a color gradient map, showing population density of the United States, how long would it take you if I said, okay, make it? Even if you could use a computer, like how long would it take you to make a color gradient map showing population density of each of the states?
Probably at least an hour.
It would take you at least an hour. Yeah, and that would be presuming I gave you like the outlines or something, yeah. Like just drawing where everything is would take much longer. It would take weeks probably. Yeah. And so turns out you don't have to wait so long to make a map. So let's do this. We did this in class. So this is going to repeat something that we did on Saturday, and then we're going to carry it further. So first of all, just to not muddy the water, I'm going to clear my selected features. So I'm going to look for this button here. Let's clear selected features so that anything I've got selected is gone. I'm going to note down here, there's lots of columns. They're called fields, lots of fields that have information. And there's one in particular that has population density. That one's called Pop10 SQMI. So that's the population in 2010 per square mile. And so I'm going to look for a way now to make my map a color gradient map using that information in that particular column in the attribute table. So to do that, I'm going to right-click on the word states, and then I'm going to choose properties. And this little thing comes up. I'm looking for the symbology tab. And we start over here on the left where it says show. We can show right now features, right? So here's a little patch. Every feature, every object in my map has the same symbol. That's not going to work for me, right? So let's ignore charts and multiple attributes for now, but we've got categories, draw categories using unique values of one field, or quantities, draw quantities using color. Do we want categories or quantities to show population density? Quantities, yeah, we want quantities. So I'm going to choose quantities, and under quantities, I'll choose graduated colors. That's the default. And then remember I said the columns were called fields? Oh, good. Emily got quantities too. The fields are right here under value. So I'm going to click this downy button, a little arrow button right there. And look, there's a list of all the fields, right? All the columns that were in my attribute table are there. And so there it is, Pop 10 SQMI. I'm going to choose that, and poof, something really interesting happens. I can click apply. It's not pretty. This is a very bad color scheme. It's like 9 kinds of bad, actually. So I'm going to choose a prettier color scheme. I don't know about you. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to click OK. So now this map is showing me population density, right? And so if I come over here to my legend in the table of contents, the lowest numbers are between 1 person per square mile and 76 people per square mile. And then look at the highest, 8833 per square mile. You can't even see where that is. It's Washington, D.C. So if I zoom right in here, there I can see it. So, so that's my first choropleth map, or your first core. I've made many other choropleth maps. So that's your first choropleth map. And there's a lot of other things we can do with choropleth maps. So you guys made a map like this when we were together before. See if you can now choose any other attribute, any other feature, field in the attribute table and make another kind of choropleth map. See if you can find a different choropleth map to make. Remember, you get there, you start there by right-clicking and choosing states and then properties. And so you can choose another attribute field and make a map of some other feature, other attribute. This one's interesting. Average family size. And I think I want it a little brighter. Just look at that. That is interesting. Average family size.
Virginia, very small.
Yeah. Yeah, really small family sizes here. Maine's pretty low too. And as soon as you, wait a minute. Oh, average size at the farm. Average family size is less than 3. So a lot of single people without children there. What is it over here? 3.43. Utah's probably the largest, 3.57. They have very large families in Utah. Maine, we got to figure that out, 2.9. So it took like 4 seconds to make a choropleth map. It's super easy. And so ArcGIS simplifies that process, or GIS, any GIS software simplifies that process really radically and makes it accessible really for anybody. Of course, then there comes the issue where you have to figure out how to make a good one, right? And so that's one of the important things that we'll be talking about going forward. But here we've made a map. So now let's start digging in a little bit further into our choropleth map and think about some other ways that we can work with it. So let us all right now make another, re-symbolize this layer again. And this time let's use an attribute like, let's do gender. So let's use females. So just choose the value as females and click OK. So this is the number of females per state. How meaningful is this? Do you notice any patterns here? The number of females per state. There's a lot of females in California. Why are there tons and tons of females in California? It is almost identical to the population size map. It's especially almost identical. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. It's especially almost identical, Liz, to if we were to symbolize it without density, we would just have the number of people without the square miles. So the most populated states have the highest number of females, but that doesn't say anything about how dense the females are, whether there are more females than males, right? So it lacks what's called normalization. So when we did population density, it showed us population per square mile. And we were not surprised to see that rural states had low population per square mile, and urban states, especially, you know, New York and Boston and Florida, Texas, and California, those had high populations. But here, this isn't really telling us a lot. There are a lot of women in California, but California is a huge state and it's very, very highly populous. It has, you know, several very large cities. There must be a different way to symbolize this. So there are a couple things we can do. So for example, let's go back into the properties window again, to the symbology tab. And there's this tool right here, this option right here called normalization. If I hit the pull down here, notice that I can choose any of the other fields, right? So if I, for instance, choose males, or actually, let's do this. I'm going to choose the total population, so POP 2010. So females, POP 2010. It's going to take the value in females for each state and divide it by the total population, right? So how many females are there relative to the total? So, and if I choose that, I can see now that if I look at my labels, some states are 35% female and others are 51% female. In fact, I can hit this label thing right up here, click label right there and choose format labels. And I can change this to percentage, and it's asked me the number already represents a percentage or the number represents a fraction, and adjust to show. I'm going to choose that second option because it was showing me decimals and I want to know the percentage. So I'm going to click that and I'll click OK. And oh, I have too many. Let me go back in there. Too many other numeric options, I think. Too many decimal places. Yeah. I'm going to just make it 0. And click OK and OK. And look at that. Okay, so now I've got the 36% to 51%, and I'll click OK. Aha, now this is a whole different ball game here. Some states have way fewer females than males. Isn't that interesting? I honestly, I've known this was the case for a while, but I really don't understand why. It's weird. It's weird. And I don't know why. And why Georgia?
I don't know.
It's interesting. I don't know. It's cowboys in the West, and there just aren't very many women. I do think that in some there's a lot of migration of men. So there is one factor that I know. There's a lot of migration of men to work in agricultural, work in the oil industry. So there's certain specific industries where they employ a lot of men in the industry, and they end out moving a lot of males. But I would not have expected it to be this dramatic. So I think this is really interesting. And then there are other states, there are a few. I can even click the little patch right next to that one. I can turn them some other crazy color. This will be fun. I'll turn them all blue. So those states are greater, or 50% or greater female. Isn't that cool? So this is pretty awesome. This is like, and it's fascinating, and you're ruined forever now, because now when you like have access to this kind of thing, you'll just go crazy for it. So now we can start messing with this a little bit. So this is choosing what color to make these, make the states based on what's known as, oh, let's see, I guess I'm going to wait on that, because I want to give you a sort of good lecture about it. So we'll wait. What I want to do next then is, now let me pause and look at my notes and see what I said I would do and do that. Let's say I just do what I said I would do. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's do this. Let's open the attribute table for the states layer, and remember to do that. You right click on the word states and choose open attribute table. And I'm going to expand it a little bit. And I want to go over the different types of attributes that we see. So we see a bunch of different types, and it's actually pretty helpful to consider what those different types are. I'm going to write that out for you. Let's scooch that over here. So in my map, I've got this this layer, and it has this whole bunch of attributes in it, right? And they each one is a little different. So attribute types. If you've done any statistics, some of this might be familiar to you. So let's start all the way to the left here. The object ID and shape, we'll ignore those for now. But for right now, we've got the state name, right? That is a non-numeric attribute, and it's what we call a nominal. Nom is Latin for name. So nominal is a non-numeric entity attribute, and you typically would symbolize it with unique values. There are a couple of other attributes like that. Do you see another one that's a non-numeric identity here?
Abbreviation.
Yeah, so state abbreviation is another one. And subregion too. is also an identity. The other thing, there's this one, state FIPS, that's an ID. It is made of numbers, right? It has numbers in it. But notice actually in this spreadsheet, they're justified to the left. That indicates that's a text field. And it's a text field because those they're basically names, right? They're IDs. They're in no particular order. The numbers themselves don't mean anything. They're just numbers assigned to them. So they can be non-numeric or ID numbers. Or identity or attribute, and they're usually unique values. So let's symbolize based on that subregion, which is one of our unique value or nominal fields. So I'm gonna, let me zoom back out to at least the lower 48 here. And we're gonna go back into the properties. And this time over here where it says show, we've been messing around with quantities. I'm going to go to categories. Unique values is the default, and that's fine. And then I'll use this pull down to find the subregion column. It doesn't automatically populate it. I have to hit add all values so that all the subregions get shown. And this is just a heinous color scheme. Ay, ay, ay. So we're going to change that. Yikes. Okay. Phew. I feel better now. And then I'll just click OK. And so here, it looks like a cartoon map, but we're not looking for pretty right now. So here, you can see that each of the regions, there's the Pacific region, there's the New England region, and the Middle Atlantic, and so on. So each of these regions is a unique value. So that's a nominal attribute. There are other types. So let's look at some other types. So if I go back to my columns here, right? So this is actually a nominal field, and all of these are nominal. Now I've got population per, population in 2010, population 2000. That's a numeric field, and there are a couple of different kinds of numeric fields. So one of them so this particular type of field has a kind of a weird name. It's called ratio. And ratio is a numeric attribute with a meaningful 0. It's a numeric attribute that is a meaningful 0. And here's what I mean. If you have a 0 in this column of population in 2000, that has meaning, right? That means something. And it means there are no people there, right? So, but there are other kinds, and really pretty much all of these others are ratio. So the number of white people, the number of black, and so on. Those are all ratios because 0 means 0. A number without a meaningful 0 would be temperature, right? 0 is just, it's not counting anything, right? It's just an arbitrary thing. And so we call that interval. It's called interval because since it doesn't have a meaningful 0, the only thing that matters is the interval, the space between each of the increments, right? So the distance between 10 degrees and 20 degrees is meaningful, but 20 degrees is not twice as cold as 10 degrees, right? So you can't use them to make ratios. So, so this is a non-meaningful zero. Ratio has meaningful zeros and can be used to create ratios. Does that make sense? Okay, so examples here would be population, I don't know, acres, etc. Just about anything you can count. And then temperature is pretty much the only commonly used interval thing in a map. What was that sound? I've never heard that sound before. I don't know what that was. We just heard a weird sound that sounded like all the computers were going to unplug themselves or something. It was so strange. Okay, so we've got nominal, ratio, interval, and then there's one more kind, and that is ordinal. The ordinal data is simply rank with no meaningful increments. So, for example, actually, I can make a. There are 51 states and DC, and so I can make a map that would show an ordinal attribute by doing this. So, if I wanted to know the most populous state, actually, I wonder if I can do it this way. Yeah, I think I can. And I'll use that. Okay. Yeah, this is ordinal. Their colors, you can't really tell the difference between the colors, but their colors are based on their rank. So whichever state this is, which I think is California, is the most populous state, and its color is the darkest. And then, of course, the lowest is this one, right? So they all have different colors based on their order, right? But the first and second one, you know, so whatever state this is, the least populous, which is probably, I don't know who it is. I got to find out. Okay, something heinous. Pink. Oh, it changed multiple states, or did it? No, it didn't. No, it didn't. Okay, it's just okay. Wyoming, okay, here, there we go. There we go. So that is the least populous state, which I did not know. I thought it was in Alaska. I thought it was. Well, I don't know. So how many people is it? Or at least like Dakota or something. I don't even know. And it's still growing. That's interesting. Anyway, so that's the least populous state in 2010. It was 548,000. And so that's the least populous state, and that's number one, right? Number two, let's figure that out. I'll use that horrible color. And that is that DC now? Because we can't see it. Yep. So that's DC, that's number two, right? So this is number two, and this is number one, but number two is not twice as populous as number one, right? They're only listed here in their order, right? So that's an ordinal attribute, that's rank with no meaningful increments. All right, any questions about those attribute types? So you'll be asked about them. You'll be asked to identify them, like on a quiz, say, oh, this attribute is, you know, is nominal, or it's ratio. The other thing that you need to be able to identify or understand is whether something is normalized, and if it's normalized, why it is or should be normalized. So for example, let's go back to something reasonable here. Let me go back so you can see my map. And you guys are awfully quiet there watching me from home. hopefully you're doing it with me. All right, so are you still awake? Are you still there, you guys? Yay, I'm getting a bunch of yeses. Yay. Just making sure. I get lonely and it's all day just on the screen. So so it's a little, you know, I got to make sure you still love me. So I'm going to go back in and go back to quantities here. And remember that we used, normalized our females, right? And we did that because it didn't really tell us much of anything without the normalization about females. It was a much more interesting map after we normalized it. And so it's super common. One interesting thing to do actually here is to take white and then and normalize it by population 2010. And I guess I'm not going to do a gradient that goes to white. I guess I'll go to green now and watch where Maine is. Maine is super white.
Shocker.
Shocker, amazing. 94% white. We're not the whitest state, but we're white, very white.
North Dakota.
I think it might be North Dakota, yeah. Anyway, so this tells a much more meaningful story. And so one of the things that you go away, stop. One of the things that you are gonna be needing to work on is how to tell whether you should and why, you know, what it is that it says. Now let's try this one more thing, then we're going to sort of move on to a new topic. If I go back into my properties window, and let's say I want to know how many Asian men there are. Can I go like this, choose value as Asian, and then the normalization field as as males? So Asian males, is that what this tells me?
I think that's quite correct. I don't know.
So Grace says she doesn't think. Zach says he doesn't think. Yeah, no. This doesn't tell me anything. This just takes the number of Asian people in the state and the number of males in the state and divides them, and there's no relationship there that you can discern. Yeah, it's too easy to be true, Aaron says. Exactly. So yeah, this is not a viable way, but it's a common, you know, occasionally a GIS 1 student will be like, oh, cool, I can tell. Yeah, you can't. And so there are a variety of things you can do to normalize. And so what would be a reasonable way to normalize the Asian population? What could we use to do that? There are a couple weird ways. Like we could use square miles, like Asians per square mile. That would be kind of weird. So that wouldn't be really useful. What would be a more reasonable way? So I'd want to divide the number of Asians by what? So just as I did with females, yes, I can use percent of total. So that's an interesting one. This is where by percentage of all Asians, where are the most Asians, right? And not surprisingly, it's California, right? Right. So of all the Asians in the United States, most of them are there, or the largest percentage are there. Let's see. I wonder. In fact, I'm going to turn this some other color just so I can see it if it's alone. Yeah. So 36% of all Asians in America live in California. Yeah, so that was an interesting one, and that did tell us a little something, right? That was meaningful. Another way to do it, you can, by the way, you can open the layer properties just by double clicking the word states, or the layer. Another way to do it would be, not surprisingly, just divide it by the population, right? So it looks very similar, but by percentage, some other states come up, like Washington and Oregon have high percentages, relatively high percentages of Asians living there. And also New York is also high. And so that is a different, that's that gives us, in this case, not the percent, but the relative amount. And remember, we can do this little trick with the labels. I'm going to start off by making no. It makes you format them again. I don't like that. We did this earlier. So it looks like there's a state, and maybe it's still California, that's 38% Asian. No. Oh, I know where it is. Hawaii.
Oh.
There it is. 38% Asian in Hawaii. So that didn't come up in the, where are most of the Asians in the country experiment, because it's a very tiny state. There's only room for so many people there in the first place, right? So so choosing how and when to normalize is really crucial. And the last thing I want to do with you guys today is let me give you a little preview of what problem set 1 is going to look like. We'll actually do it, I think, next week. But what we're going to do, is you're going to have the opportunity to select some, we'll do states or maybe counties. You'll select a certain area of the country, connected, so connected states or connected counties, and you're going to find other attributes. So I'll demonstrate this. I usually use something like diabetes, or some other, smoking or something like that. We'll find statistics on those things by state or by county, and then we'll enter them into the GIS ourselves and make our own attributes and our own choropleth map with our own data. It's total superpower stuff. It's really cool. So we can go to the Centers for Disease Control, for instance, and that's and I'll give you a little heads up that we're going to be doing this. So Centers for Disease Control, and I'll just look for diabetes statistics. So they make their own maps. So here's county data, for instance. So rankings. Let's see. County gate. No, I don't want an there we go. Maine. There's Maine. So I can download this data. That's a good spot for it. I can open it. And look, I have a bunch of diabetes information for each of the counties in Maine. There are 16 counties in Maine. And I can take those 16 counties from some GIS data, and I can add this information. So, for instance, the number of people with a diabetes diagnosis, and even the percent of people. And if you look here, here's, for instance, Aroostook County. Washington County is second from the bottom. This is going to be a really interesting map. Look at the percentage of people who have diabetes in Aroostook County. It's more than 1 in 10. Right? So this way we can make maps that show information that's important to us that nobody else might have made. And did you know before you took this class that 1 in 10 people in actually more than one, so in Washington County it's 9%, and in Waldo County, which is a little surprising, but I think it's because of age. I think Waldo County is a relatively old county. It's 9%. So yeah. And if you adjust for age adjusted upper confidence level, yeah, anyway, we won't get into that. So that's where we're going with problem set 1. What we'll do next week is I'll show you how to add this data, and then we're going to talk about how the computer decides how to sort the data into groups, right? So right now what we've been working on, just by way of looking ahead, we've been, the stuff we've been doing, we've been allowing the computer to decide which color to assign to which groups, but really, how do you decide where those class breaks go? So another way to do it, for instance, I have 50 states, and if I have 5 groups, what if I want 10 in each group? Right? That makes it look a little different. Right? So this is showing the top 10, but that's a huge range, top 10 from 4 to 38%. So we'll mess around with that. We'll talk about the different ways you can divide up those groups and why you would choose each different kind of way. And then you'll be almost ready for problem set 1, pretty much ready for problem set 1. Any questions before we wrap up? And I have to teach another class. Oh, God. Yeah. I'm pretty fried. And I had to, my computer crashed in the middle of it. So I have to pull up all the windows again because I had it all ready. Yeah. All right, you guys. Hopefully the peanut gallery here will chime in more. I'll nag you. I'll try to think of ways to nudge you. Thank you. All right. And I'll see you guys next week, and I'll see you Saturday.
Yeah.
Or Saturday if you weren't here this past week.
So it's Saturday at 9.
Saturday at 9, right here. Yep. If it's a snow day, we'll do it Sunday. But I don't think it'll be so bad. See you Saturday too, Erin. Thanks, everybody.